Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to create a card combining products from Fawn and Newton's Nook. Hope you enjoy!
So I started with a piece of paper that is A5, which is roughly 8 by 6 inches. And I put it on my Make Art station and used the magnets to hold down the Plaid Stencil from Fawn. This is the larger one. And when I'm using this stencil, I like to mark where the top right-hand corner is so that I can always line it up perfectly when I rotate it. And I just used a bit of pink pen, and you'll see when I move this stencil in the top right-hand corner, and I lined the top of the stencil up with the top of the card. So once I've finished covering the entire stencil with the Tattered Rose Distress Oxide, I'm going to carefully rotate it, line it up with that pink line and the top of the paper, and then put the magnets back on. And I'm going to use the same color for the second layer. Now I prefer using the magnets to hold my stencil in place because I find it stops the stencil from jumping and getting marks underneath where the stencil is. But you could always secure it with washi tape or low tack tape if you prefer. So I'm going to remove that stencil and put the second one on, and I'm still lining it up with that pink line and the top of the paper. And I'm going to use this beautiful ink. This is the Enchanted Gold ink from Altenew. And it is a wonderful ink that when it catches the light, you get this beautiful gold glimmer. You'll see it when I hold it up to the light later. And then I'll rotate the stencil the last time and put the gold on again. I don't know about you, but I don't buy many pattern papers. I prefer to create my own backgrounds. So using stencils like this is a lot more enjoyable to me than buying pre-printed plaid paper. And it's great that you can create custom colors like this wonderful combination. So the main stamp set that I'm using for this is this Newton's Nook Heartfelt Roses stamp set. And there's also a die set that's called Heart Frames die. And I will be using the 2 bigger hearts for this card. And I'm going to stamp this Heartfelt Rose with some VersaFine. So I'm just using an anti-static bag first, and then stamping it with the clear embossing ink. And to match the gold in the background, I'm going to use one of the Wow embossing powders, which is called the Metallic Brass color. And it's a beautiful brassy gold that looks really nice with that Altenew ink. So I'm just going to put that onto my rose and then heat set the stamp. It's just gorgeous. Now once that embossing powder has melted, you can see that beautiful brassy gold color when it catches the light. Now I'm going to use the second largest heart, which is scalloped, and line this up around the heart. And I'll use some low tack Post-it note tape to keep it in place. And I'm going to use the bigger heart with some vellum. And this is the Fawn vellum, which is clear, so it looks really nice as an accent on your card. And then I'll die cut these 2 shapes. And now you can see how beautiful that Heartfelt Roses stamp is, which works really well with that vellum heart as well. So for coloring, I used my Copic markers for this, and I wanted to go with a pastel theme. So I used a darker pastel-y red on the outside of the petals and a lighter pastel-y pinky red on the outside. And then I just blended those 2 colors together and added a bit more of the darker red on the inside. And then I colored all the other roses with the same color combination. Now for the leaves, I used a pastel-y blue-green and then a darker version of it on the inside of the leaves, closer to the roses. Then I blended these colors together. Now for the outside of the heart, you could leave it white, but I decided to use that lighter blue-green, and it looks really beautiful just around the outside of the heart. And now that the background's colored, you can see how beautiful this stamp is, especially if you put it in front of that vellum heart. So I've cut my background down to 5.5 inches squared, and I want to put the vellum heart on, but I find that the best way to add the vellum heart is with foam squares rather than using glue. So if you line it up with the smaller heart and put the foam squares in the same place, you won't have anything showing and it will stick nicely on your card. So before I adhere these down, I'm just going to use a little bit of string. This was string that I had left over from a necklace that I made, but you could always use twine if you prefer. This is a really nice dark brown, so it goes well with the color combinations on the card. It's a little bit thinner than a traditional rat tail that you would use in a necklace. And I just adhered it on both sides of the card and then tied it into a bow. And I used washi tape on the back of the card there. Now once I'm happy with the bow, I can use my heart just to adjust it so that it's at the right height, because I want this string to go behind the heart. So I'll just pull it down until it's nice and even and it's in the right position. And that's the great thing about using the washi tape, that you can easily move it around. And now that I'm happy with the position, I'll remove the foam square backing and adhere it in place. And then I'll just add the Heartfelt Rose stamp on top. And then I'll just trim down the bow. And then I want to make sure that that bow is nice and even, and I will adhere it in place. And when I'm using a bow like this, I'll just use a little bit of glossy accents, which kind of acts like a glue, and it will keep it from moving. I'll just squeeze it behind the bow so no one will see it. And then I'll just use one of my smaller acrylic blocks to keep it in place until it's dried. Now meanwhile, I'm going to work on my sentiment. So I'm using a congratulations sentiment from the same stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp it on a bit of craft recycled paper, and then I'll trim it down to size. Now for the outside of my card, I'm going to add a little frame, and I wanted it to be the same color as my sentiment, but I didn't have a piece of craft card that was big enough. So I'm going to use this vintage photo Distress Oxide, which is a good enough match. And I'll just put it around the outside of the card. And this paper is 5 3/4 inches squared, which is roughly the size of a 6-inch card blank here in the UK. It's never quite 6 inches. So now I'm going to glue on my card front onto the vintage photo frame. And you'll see it's a beautiful color combination. There's something about that gold and the brown that matches really nicely. And I'll add on my sentiment. And I just used a white PVA glue to adhere the sentiment and the card onto the card blank. So here's the 6-inch card blank, and I'm going to leave it top folding, and I'll adhere the card front onto the card blank. And then I thought the card needed just a little bit more sparkle, so I used some jewels from Pretty Pink Posh. These are called the pearl white jewels, but I'm sure any kind of embellishment would look great on this type of card. And I just adhered them with a little bit of white glue. And now you can see the finished card with lots of gold and sparkle and shine, a perfect celebration card.
I hope you enjoyed this video and found it inspiring. Be sure to subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!